Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari ST A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari ST games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the former, although I actually played it on the Super NES rather than the Atari ST. Today we're looking at Chuck Rock, which was a 1991 release by Core Design, originally released for Atari ST and Amiga, and subsequently ported to a variety of different platforms ranging from Commodore 64 to Acorn Archimedes in the home computer space, and Mega Drive, Master System, Game Gear, Super NES and Game Boy in the console space. Chuck was Core Design's mascot prior to the introduction of Lara Croft in 1996, and characters from the Chuck Rock game had a regular comic strip in the popular UK children's magazine called Lookin'. And when the magazine folded, Chuck's final strip depicted his assumed death, but he was actually swept away to an island where he became revered as a god. But because people assumed he was dead, he was mourned by a bunch of characters, including the then Prime Minister of the UK, John Major, for some reason. Now, the game was popular enough to spawn a sequel, but the sequel didn't actually star Chuck Rock at all. It starred his son, who was a sort of baby with a club, and that was pretty poorly received. And there was also a racing game that not many people seem to remember, and I believe became freeware at some point. But the original is still pretty fondly regarded by a lot of people, because it was a fun game. So I'm interested to return to it, and particularly take a look at it, given that I'm more familiar with the Super NES version than the actual ST version. So, let's go play Chuck Rock.
Okay, here we are with Chuck Rock. One Sunday afternoon, I couldn't read that because it went by too quickly. Let's just enjoy the opening animation. Chuck's wife, Ophelia, is stolen by Gary Gritter. Because at the time this was released, I don't believe the truth was out about Gary Glitter, who the antagonist was named after. But anyway, Core Design at the time often did really nice intro sequences. This is a very quiet one, but it had some cool animation. Anyway, Chuck Rock, let us begin. So, as I say, I'm more familiar with the Super NES version of this, which runs a lot more smoothly, has better graphics, better sound, and so on. But this game did start as an Atari ST and Amiga game, and I actually think my first contact with this game was as a playable demo on a cover disc for one of the magazines at the time. And probably ST Action, ST Format, ST User, or something along those lines. So yeah, this is a platform game with a few nice mechanics in there. So you attack things by either jump kicking them or doing what my parents and I used to affectionately refer to as a belly boomf. And we always found Chuck very amusing for the fact that he attacked things in that way. And you can pick up rocks and chuck them, obviously, hence the name. That's also the character's name. And by making use of those around the various levels, you can reach otherwise inaccessible locations and get to treasures that will get you more points, or health restoring items, or extra lives, or all the sorts of things that you normally find in platform action adventures like this. We've got things like this dinosaur here who carries you across this big old swamp. And yeah, this game was pretty well regarded back in the day. Looking back on it, the sort of review scores it got that have been aggregated sort of seem to be hovering around the 60-70 mark, and I remember this being a lot better received than that. Perhaps it was a case that we've seen a few times before where the magazines had a lot of positive things to say, but they ended up, for whatever reason, giving it a slightly lower score. I don't know what the situation was, but I remember this being popular. Maybe it was the fact that it was popular and commercially successful, and not necessarily critically super well received. I don't know, but I remember it being a game that my parents were aware of. Because I didn't have many games for my Super NES growing up, but Chuck Rock was one of them. And Chuck Rock was one of the ones that I got bought for Christmas. I think I got it with my system. I actually got an American copy though, for some reason. Because sort of American imports for Super NES were fairly commonplace at the time. And you used to have to use one of those converter cartridges where you plugged a British cartridge into the back and the American cartridge into the top to make this weird sort of Frankensteinian monstrosity poking out your Super NES's cartridge port. But yeah, I had the American version of Chuck Rock and I had the American version of Street Fighter 2. Oops, dead. And the American version of Street Fighter 2 was always quite notorious for its extreme letterboxing on PAL systems. This was back in a time when PAL systems exclusively ran at 50 hertz. And so when you, in some cases, when you tried to run an American game, that disparity in resolution and refresh rate would cause sort of extreme issues with how the game was presented on a PAL television. The Street Fighter 2 particularly suffered with it. I don't remember Chuck Rock suffering particularly badly from that though. But it was something that varied a great deal from game to game. Now obviously on the Atari ST version you didn't really have issues like that because as far as I'm aware we didn't have any releases for the Atari ST that were specifically designed for 60 Hz monitors. Some pieces of software allowed you to switch between 50 and 60 Hz, but for the most part, because most of the software that we were making use of, be it games or productivity applications or whatever, because most of that was purchased in the UK or sent for us for review from UK software company, it was already optimized for 50 Hz, and so there weren't really any issues to deal with there. How did I do this? I can't remember. Oops. So that needs to go up there, but then how do we get up there? Not like that. So yeah, this is one thing I sort of remember from this game, is the fact that it was actually quite puzzly. There we are. So we just need to use both of these rocks. We use one to get up and one to actually get up off the next platform. But yeah, this sort of puzzle adventure structure was very much par for the course for European platform games on home computers in particular. There's quite a marked distinction between European home computer games and console games, which is why it was quite interesting to see Chuck Rock successfully make the transition from home computer to console. Right, so we can't go that way. Let's take this down here. Oh, I remember, yeah. Can we walk? Oh, we can just walk over those. Just flatten them. I remember. Alright, so what we do in this situation is we grab this rock here. And we stand on one end of this. There we are. And drop the rock on the other. And you go boing up in the air. Straight into an enemy. Oh, there's a hole there. That's convenient. Yeah, so other things the Super NES version added, like you might expect, is it had a musical accompaniment to the action, which I don't know if the Amiga version had. Very often the Amiga version of games like this would have had a musical soundtrack to what was going on, whereas the ST version was often stuck with fairly weedy sound effects like this, which is a shame, but understandable. I did always find it a bit of a shame when people underutilise the ST's capabilities, particularly in the sound department. As I've talked a lot of shit on the ST sound chip over the course of this series, but the fact is, in the right hands, it was capable of good things. I mean, as we've said before, it's basically the same sound chip that's in the Sega Master System and also the Spectrum Plus 3, I think. And both of those platforms are more than capable of doing games with interesting background music and good sound effects and that sort of thing. And there's numerous games on the ST that make really good use of sampled sound and even digitized music or mod tracker music and that sort of thing. It's just a shame that so many developers, for one reason or another, chose not to do that. I mean, in some cases it was a question of practicality, because when you only had a limited amount of processing power and memory and all that sort of thing to do your thing with, it might have just not been practical to do that. They might have not been able to get the game running acceptably while making use of, say, digitized music and sound or whatever. But at the same time, though, there are plenty of other examples that prove it is possible. It is possible to get something that's, if not exactly the same as the Amiga version, then it's certainly coming pretty close in a few regards. And then there's also plenty of cases where the ST version is utterly laughable compared to the Amiga version, with the Shadow of the Beast being probably the most famous, awful example. Yeah, so what was once a showcase game with beautiful parallax scrolling on the Amiga became an ugly brown mess that ran at an atrocious frame rate on the Atari ST. So yes, technically it did still have the parallax scrolling, but it was so jerky that it was difficult to feel impressed by it, because it just didn't look very nice. And I think a lot of people, when it came to Shadow of the Beast, they would have rather have something that ran a bit more smoothly than something that ran so poorly and was just obviously trying and failing to ape the Amiga version. I'm enjoying this. This is actually a really solid platformer. I mean, as I say, there are better versions of this game. The Super NES version is technically superior. The Amiga version is almost certainly technically superior. But if I'd had this back in the day, for the Atari ST rather than the Super NES, I would have been happy with this, I think. It's a sort of console-style experience for the Atari ST. And that's our game over there. And I don't think you can continue. No, you can't. It just takes you back to the beginning. So let's just leave that there for now. I mean, you've seen a selection of levels there. As you progress, there's more things to see. I think there's some bosses and stuff to fight along the way as well. But you work your way through the levels. You solve puzzles. You fight various enemies. You throw rocks around. And you belly bump things. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed revisiting that. That was good fun. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.